Hi, awesome Algebra 1 students. My name is Mrs. Versailles, and I'm going to teach you 6.2b, Solve Quadratic Equations by Factoring. Write the title down and today's date, and then we'll get started. The last couple weeks, we've been factoring expressions. So we're still going to be factoring expressions, or we're going to have expressions that are already factored for us. Remember, when we factor, we typically had two sets of parentheses. Or factoring by GCF, we divided out a common number or x value for factoring. So we'll still see that. But the difference today is that we're going to also solve equations. So one extra step to get us to solve an equation by factoring. Remember, our goal when we solve an equation is to have our answers as x equals some number. Since we're solving quadratic equations, just like we did before spring break, we'll have usually always a second solution as well. So we'll have x equals and x equals for our goal. In order to solve equations by factoring, we also have to know the zero product property. So write down the goal, write down this zero product property. The zero product property states, you probably learned this in junior high, that if you multiply two expressions, you multiply two numbers, and you get 0, then A must equal 0 and or B must equal 0, because anything times 0 is 0. So write down this zero product property. We're going to use our goal of what our answer should look like, the zero product property, and factoring to solve quadratic equations by factoring. We have 4 examples for you today, and then we'll practice. Here's example 1. Solve, in parentheses, x plus 6 times x minus 7, which was also in parentheses, equals 0. This is already in factored form. It looks similar to what we did last week. This is what our answers look like last week, right? 2 sets of parentheses. We came up with the 2 numbers that multiplied to something and added up to something else. So when we're already in factored form, then we have 2 expressions that are multiplied by each other. Using the zero product property, we'll call one of them A and the other one B, right? They're multiplied by each other. So using the zero product property, all we need to do is set A's expression equal to 0 and then B's expression equal to 0 to solve. And again, this is called the zero product property. So you can shorthand that as ZPP. And here's what it looks like when we use it. Set the first expression equal to 0. So x plus 6 equals 0. And then set the second expression or product equal to 0. And I know you can solve those 2 equations to reach our goal. So x plus 6 equal to 0, just subtract 6 from both sides. And you get x equals negative 6. That is our first solution. Donezo. X minus 7 equals 0. Just add 7 to both sides. X equals 7. That's our second and final solution. Donezo. So we just solved this quadratic using the zero product property and got our 2 solutions. Example 2. Solve 2x times 3x plus 9 equals 0. This looks like the expressions from the last couple weeks where we factored out a GCF. Remember, we divided out a 2 and an x, for example. So this is what our answers look like when we factor out a GCF. To solve number 2, we use the same steps that we did in number 1 with the zero product property. My first expression, which you can call A, is just the 2x. So we'll set that equal to 0. My second expression, the B, the second product, is 3x plus 9. Set that equal to 0. And I know you can solve those 2 equations. 2x equals 0. Just divide both sides by 2. 0 divided by 2 is still 0. So there's my first solution. Donezo. Second equation, 3x plus 9 equals 0. Start by undoing that positive 9. So subtract 9 from both sides. You get 3x equals negative 9. And then divide both sides by 3. X equals negative 3. There's my second and final solution. Donezo. Should we just solve this quadratic by using the zero product property? And there's my two solutions. Two more examples. Example 3. Solve x plus 1 quantity squared equals 0. Now, remember, when we have an expression that looks like x plus 1 quantity squared, before we get into the zero product property, we need to expand. So x plus 1 squared is the same as x plus 1 times x plus 1. So rewrite that. And again, that's called expanding. So write the word expand next to it. Did that. And now we can use the zero product property. Two products, they're equal to 0. So I'll set the first product, we can call this one A. Set that equal to 0. X plus 1 equals 0. The second product, we can call this one B. Set that equal to 0. And then solve for your solutions. X plus 1 equals 0. To solve, I'll subtract 1 from both sides. X equals negative 1. Donezo, there's my first solution. And look, the second equation was the exact same. So we don't even have to go through all that work. I have one and only one solution, because when I subtract 1 from both sides, I also get x equals negative 1. So I just solved this quadratic by expanding and using the zero product property to find my solution. Last example. Write this one down. Solve x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. I have to do one additional step in this problem that I didn't do before, because this expression is quadratic. It's not factored yet. I don't see the two sets of parentheses set equal to 0 that I can set separately equal to 0. I don't see that here. So I have to create it first. Little throwback for us. So we have x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. I need two numbers that multiply to 15 and add up to 8. Now, because both of these are positive, my list of numbers that multiply to 15 can just be positives. So we have 1 times 15. 2, nope, that doesn't multiply into 15. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 does not multiply into 15. 5 we already have. 6, nope. Keep going. 7 does not multiply into 15. 8 does not. 9, nope. 10, nope, that doesn't multiply into 15. 11, 12, 13, 14, nope. So it's just these two. That's my list of numbers that multiply to 15. I have to figure out which of these also adds up to 8. Should be the second grouping of numbers. And because 3 and 5 multiply to 15 and add up to 8, then I will rewrite my quadratic in factored form. So we had to factor this. And remember, we write our two sets of parentheses. We have positive 3, positive 5. And then to get the x squared, we have x and x. The only difference from last week to this week is we also have the equals 0 because it's an equation. So now that we are factored, use again, this looks like examples 1 through 3 now, the zero product property. Set each expression or each factor equal to 0 separately and solve. So we have x plus 3 equals 0. x plus 5 equals 0. And I know you can solve those two equations. X plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3 from both sides. You get negative 3 for my first solution. X plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 5 from both sides. And we get x equals negative 5 for my second and final solution. So we just solved this quadratic by factoring and using the zero product property to get our two solutions. Let us know if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great day.